Through the veil where the darkness grows, a rebel heart ignites, it glows. Each step I take defies the rain. Aeternum's grip won't bind my chain.
How's it going, everyone? Doc here with Eyes Wide Shot Gaming, and today we are going to be breaking down one of my favorite builds that we threw together to keep us at range from all sorts of enemies, both PvE and PvP. This is our throwing hatchet build. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, as it helps keep us motivated to keep making informative and entertaining videos for all of our amazing viewers like you. This build is going to be a medium build, letting us sit at a weight of 22.3. Let's dive right into it with a bit of a breakdown of our armor, starting with the helmet. We have on the heavy hoplite helm. With this throwing hatchet, we opted to go to the nature damage route, so we equipped the Arboreal Nature Ward Rune Glass, giving us a 5% nature damage absorption, as well as an increase of 2% to our nature attacks. This will be beneficial not just in PvP, but even in gorgon runs. Our other three perks are Enchanted Ward to mitigate light and heavy attack damage, Nature Harnessing to further increase our nature damage, and Health to give us a nice little boost of 2.4% to the base value of our health. Our chest piece is the Nature's Wrath artifact, yet another boost of 36 to Magnify, along with the Nature's Wrath unique perk, Nature's Blessing. The main focus of this perk is the fact that although our Empower's duration is non-existent, we always deal 20% more base damage with all of our attacks. On this chest piece, we again equip the Arboreal Nature Ward Rune Glass, Refreshing to reduce our max cooldowns by 4% since we want our skills to come back as fast as possible with this build, Enchanted Ward again, and another Nature Harnessing to keep padding our nature damage. The gloves that we pick will be the heavy hoplite gauntlets. They have identical perks as our helmet, Arboreal Nature Ward Rune Glass, Enchanted Ward, Nature Harnessing, and Health. We want to stack our nature damage and Enchanted Ward as much as possible to dish out supreme damage with every hit, as well as be able to mitigate attacks that might be dealt by any ranged enemy. Our legwear is the light hoplite pants. For this piece of armor, we start adding perks that benefit our specific attacks. For some protection against fire staff users, we have the Arboreal Fire Ward for 5% fire damage absorption, as well as another increase to our nature attack by 2%. We also have Enchanted Ward, yet again, Refreshing, so to continue to reduce the cooldowns of our skills, and Keen Berserk. One of our skills is Berserk, so when we activate it, we gain 13% critical chance and 13% more critical damage. Finally, for the last piece of armor, we have the heavy footwear Gorgon Sabatons. We continue to focus our nature damage here as well as fire damage absorption with the Arboreal Fire Ward Rune Glass, bigger to reduce the base duration of burn, bleed, and poison by 18%. Now this is mostly against fire staff users again, and Nature Harnessing as well as Health. Let's move on over to our weapons. Most people opt to use the Sin Hatchet, but we went an alternate route, and since we want to stay at range and focus on throwing hatchet attacks, we went with the Freya's Francisca Artifact Hatchet. The unique perk this weapon has is Thrown Mastery. Thrown axe projectiles reduce all axe skill cooldowns by 25%. Since all of our attacks revolve around chucking this hatchet into enemy skulls, we will continue to have 25% reduction in the cooldowns of our skills every 5 seconds. The rune glass we chose is the Augmented Arboreal Rune Glass. This will allow our weapon to inflict poison, dealing 8% nature damage per second for 2 seconds with every hit. Along with this skill, we also have Empowering Rending Throw. This allows our ranged hatchet attacks to deal 41% damage against rending throw targets. And paired with our Keen Berserk skills, Crit Chance and Crit Damage Boost, most rending throw targets take wild damage from us. We also have Refreshing Move to keep reducing our weapon cooldowns by 2.5% per attack, and finally Arboreal Attunement, so that our weapon is fully focused around nature damage since that's what we're working towards. For our secondary weapon, we went with the Hoplite Spear. This is interchangeable around your playstyle, but our reasoning for it was to keep enemies that close in at a distance with our skills. For example, if our enemy moves into melee range on us, we have the option to hit them with our javelin skill, to push them slightly back and stagger them, giving us the opportunity to dodge back and resume our hatchet throwing. Or, if we are attacked by multiple targets, we can always use Cyclone to perform a spin attack and slow the enemies down by 30%, again allowing us time to pull away and resume throwing our hatchets. For our Heartrune, we went with the cunning Heartrune of Grasping Vines. This will allow us to not only affect our enemies with enfeebling vines to weaken them, but also leeching vines to heal us for 20% of the damage we do to rooted targets. This is also another way to gain some distance on melee-oriented enemies. For our jewelry, we kept it simple with no artifact. Our amulet is the Gorgon's amulet, and on it, we equipped the Fire Ward to mitigate 6% fire damage, as well as refreshing, health, and thrust protection, since Fire Staff users aren't the only threat from afar we might encounter. The ring is the tricky part. There might be one out there that is better, but for the sake of simplicity, we went with the Tanglevine ring. Again, Fire Ward on it for the fire damage absorption, as well as poisoning to extend the duration of poisons we apply by 24%. Hardy to have 10% more max stamina to dodge away from enemies coming in too close, and obviously nature damage at 7.1% to further increase our lethal attacks. Finally, our earring, the Hoplite earring. The perks again revolve around the same idea with the Fire Ward and Refreshing, but we also have Refreshing Toast to have some cooldown on our consumables, and most importantly, regenerating, allowing us to gain 0.53% health every second. Now this is more beneficial in PvE encounters though. Let's take a quick look at how we allocated our skill points as well as our stats before seeing what kind of damage we can do to differently built enemies. We have a little mix between the Berserker tree and throwing, with an obvious lean towards the throwing tree. The one perk we do want from the Berserker tree is the Berserk skill, which allows us to enter a Berserk mode that increases all attack damage by 20% for 12 seconds. We pair this up with On the Hunt for speed and Berserking Refresh to gain some lifesteal with every attack. Over on the throwing side of the tree, we start with Rending Throw, so we have a skill that rends our targets, allowing us to have a plethora of perks activate on rended enemies, and along with it, Infected Throw to inflict disease and weaken, which lets us, with 2 attacks, inflict poison, disease, weaken, and rend on an enemy, creating opportunities to really pop off with devastating critical attacks. Our final perk is Persistent Hindrance. This will allow us to extend the duration of all hatchet debuffs we apply by 25% with every hit, and increases our damage by 4% base damage per debuff on target. Also, please don't forget, since this is a throwing hatchet build, we must throw a point into aim throw. We lose our block ability, but this is a strong basis of this entire build. As for our stat points, we have 350 in strength, since the hatchet works primarily off of our strength, and 228 into dexterity as a secondary from building into our hatchet. We also have 25 points in focus to reduce the cooldowns of our skills, and the constitution is sitting at 53 with food. Let's go dive in and see the damage this hatchet can deploy onto 3 different targets. We were helped greatly by our amazing company members, Bobblebeese, who is in a light build with 14k health, Geo, who is in a heavy build with 18.3k health, and RandomShot, who is also on the light build with 13k health. We truly want to thank our friends for spending the time to help us make this video. As you can see, we unleash a flurry of attacks on each target, dealing anywhere from 2,000 damage against heavily armored targets all the way to over 3,500 damage per hit on light targets. Let's keep in mind that there is a counter to every single build out there. There is no such thing as the perfect build, but hopefully this one helps many of those that want to use the hatchet but don't enjoy melee builds. And as always, thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and until next time, so long.